All right, so let's talk about, let's see, which of the two first. I guess we'll start alphabetically.
Ooh.
About Angazhan.
Oh my God. Horrifying. Horrifying. Because when I was looking at like the different god options, I was like, oh, this name sounds cool. And then I like started doing some research and looking into like what the past of Angazhan was. And I'm like, oh, they're horrifying. They're like literally terrifying.
Yeah, for viewers, I'll put an image up. It's uh, I guess a demon and a giant horrifying gorilla.
Mm-hmm.
It's like is in the way it's drawn. It's just so looks so terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
The ravenous king.
Yep.
This god is
Yeah.
pretty much the main god for Usaro.
Yes.
So when you constructed this, were you thinking of like adventure seeds in mind or stories in mind that players can use about this god or against this god?
Well, so then Angzan is the ravenous king and demon lord of beasts. And when you're in the Mwangi Expanse, this tropical place, there are dozens and dozens of different types of beasts. So having this chaos god that is just primal evil and energy, I loved the idea of beasts being disturbed. Like something is going wrong. They are going out of their general habits. They are attacking people, not necessarily even just to eat them, but just to harm them. And the question is like, as to why? What is happening? What is going on? And then people starting to see more and more and more that there was like this presence happening. These things had an insatiable hunger. And leaning into like the names, the ravenous king. It's like, why do these creatures have an insatiable hunger that won't end? And then finding out that they're patrons of Angazhan. They are followers that do whatever they need or whatever he asks for just to get this never-ending hunger potentially satiated and pave like a path of danger along the way. Because Angazhan's thing was that people who followed him did it because they wanted power. And there's always like that one evil character. Even if it's not in every game, there's always that one. And that moment when the evil character figures out this is someone that grants power. This is someone that knows the hunger, the insatiable need for more and more and more. There's gonna be the group that's like, this is bad. We have to avoid this. We have to stop them. But I'm excited for that one person who's like, but the power though, never ending hunger. Like it's I want to see that person who's like an embodiment of the sin of gluttony that wants to serve Angazhan.
Yeah, there's something about stories where we love like this ultra evil
Yeah,
bad person.
yeah.
We have Dragonlance has two kisses, Lord of the
Yep.
Rings has Sauron, and oh, I forgot the one who Sauron serves. Um, Stories like that. So that's what I thought when I read this. Is that what you're thinking of? This could be like sort of the main one of the main nemesis that characters may be facing against the followers of Angazhan.
100%. Because like even with the followers of Angazhan, like they don't necessarily like each other, but they acknowledge like, you know what? I don't really like you that much, but we both serve him. So like we're cool. I'm gonna go blow up this town. You go destroy that one. We're good. And and writing about that was so it was satisfying because like you get a lot of those plots where like all of the big bad's minions are working together and it's like no not with this one. They all acknowledge each other, but like you might have stopped the plot of these two over here. It has nothing to do with what that demon's doing. And so you thought you had a whole like leg up and they're like, no, actually I ate 3 towns. You were too slow. Oh my god, it's gonna be so good.
So let's talk about the other lawful evil deity. Well,
Yeah.
this one's chaotic evil. The other one's lawful. This one's lawful evil.
Yeah.
Walkena. And
Okay. Yeah.
and and this character is interesting because it's a tragic. There's a
Mm-hmm.
tragic story behind Walkena.
Mm-hmm.
Walkena was originally uh, a good person, and what was the inspiration behind writing this? Because I don't know. I was looking at the character, and I'm trying, and I felt like a little bit of like like a little bit of Aztec, a little bit of Egyptian, a little bit of different, maybe because the idea of coming back to life,
Yeah.
you know.
So like Walkena is they're called the God King, but their resemblance is still that of like a young figure, almost like a child in resemblance in some ways. And in a lot of African history, there were so many young rulers. And like even in Aztec culture, Egyptian culture, rulers of a young age were pretty common. And when you have a deity like this, the young innocence is something that you want to believe is there at first glance. And like the kindness and compassion that they had was something they had in their life, but in their death and revival, technically, that innocence and compassion was lost. But they still had the figure of that relation and of that appearance, and seeing that like this figure that was smaller and looked kind and generous, or like an infant to some people, has all of this power, all of this pain, and this strong belief that I will do whatever it takes to return my homeland to the prime that I know it can have. It was like the death took away the innocence, but it did not take away the appearance of innocence.
Hmm. Would you say this was a much tougher thing to write, being that it's such a
Absolutely.
complicated character?
Absolutely. Because like with Angazhan, there is rage and power and aggression. But with this, it's like the lawful evil nature. It felt like it was a challenge in the sense that like this is someone who you want them to feel like they have some just nature in it. Their execution of it may be horrible, like because like Walkena, when you look in some of the backstory, uh did some terrible things to people to justify the needs of restoring their home. um and it's hard because it's like, I want to root for this person. I kind of want to be like, that makes sense, I get why you did that, but it's also like, in that action you helped these 10 people by killing those 100. And Walkena will always be like, and I did it, and I would do it again because it was right.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I was conflicted about how to feel about Wakena. Like, I understand the need for, I guess, peace through tyranny, I guess you could say,
Yep.
quoting from Megatron. But it's almost like, I don't know, like our culture has a very strange fascination with like like understanding the good and bad of controlling entities or governments. For
Yes.
example, Judge Dredd. Like we look at
Yes.
Judge Dredd and think, oh, that's a great character, is this super cop. But if you think about the world building behind that it's a pretty much they control everything, and
Yeah.
it's their judge. What's the three things? Judge, jury, and
Jury
executioner.
executioner. Yep. Well,
So that's it. So if they, if I hope that their judgment's correct, or else. And so yeah, I was feeling that also. It's a very definitely very complicated character,
yeah.
or
It's
a
I
deity.
remember one of the lines is, he will do anything to protect his people so long as they do not defy him. And it there are plenty of people in Mwali that excuse me, Mzali, that would see his actions as just lawful. Like he is just a lawful deity that does whatever it takes to protect us. There are plenty of people that would not consider him evil. They might consider him cruel, but they probably wouldn't consider him evil. And is he only considered evil because he kills people indiscriminately if they do something to harm his followers, his people, his city? Is he evil because of how vicious he will be if they attack or they wrong him? Um, there are stories that were referenced, that when like colonization was coming to Mazali, he decimated the people who attempted to colonize it. And in doing so, it's that question of like, but is that evil? Like, he stopped his people from being colonized. He didn't necessarily have to burn them all alive, but he did save them by killing these people that were coming to do something also terrible. So it was a interesting challenge because it's kind of like Blood Cove. It was a fun moral gray point to write. Good and evil, unless it's like pure evil, it's vicious evil. Um, we call it evil sometimes just because people have died or people have suffered, but it doesn't mean the people that were protected see it as evil anymore.
I noticed that you left some venture seeds with Walkena, like the fact that Walkena is very angry with the city of Vidrian.
Yes.
Um, can you talk a little about that? Was there something, was that on their purpose so that venture seeds could be made?
100%. Um, Especially because like depending on how where someone puts their party first, if they go to Mazali first and they get to hear about Walkena, they see the influence they have there. And like Walkena does technically just roam the city sometimes. Like it just they are a resident. They don't hide because they have no reason to hide. And if a GM wanted to introduce them to the party ahead of time, they might send them out to go do something. But if they come from an enemy city, a city that has wronged Mazali in some way, and Volcana sees them or senses them, or they bring any of that into his city, it's probably going to be bad. Like it's probably going to be bad. It's like you bringing a knife from a family enemy into their home, and it's like it might have been a gift, but you brought that into my home. Why would you do that? Do you know what you've done? And then either maybe they'll have to do something to get into his good graces, maybe they'll have to do something to get faith or favor, or maybe they just might have to run.
Is there anything about these two gods that you wanted to share that I haven't asked you about?
I like I want to see someone have an interaction with these two, because as terrible as it is, I could see a world where they work together if it's good for Mazali and it means that Angazhan gets power. Like if there was an allied army and city that was like roaming their way through the Mwangi Expanse to slay these harsh evil gods, and one of them was coming in the direction of Mazali, and Angazhan came to Walkena and was like, I offer you a deal. Like just something. It's like, I know they're coming to your city, but they have something I want. And they will be a problem for you without my help. And Walkena is not foolish. They probably acknowledge that if it was that bad. So a moment when those two come together for whatever unifying purpose, I want to hear or see how horrifying that is. And if they have to come together for a purpose, what was so horrifying that they decided to say yes to it? Because otherwise, like they're so different, they're probably not people's first thought of putting them together in a situation. And that's why that's why it's interesting to me.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Again, this book is fantastic. Even if you play D&D 5e or any version of D&D, or pick this up.
It's an amazing setting. Even if you just read the setting, if you look into the lore, I have zero doubt that some part of this book is going to inspire you, from the beauty of the illustrations to the storytelling to seeing the diversity of stories from another land, the diversity of stories that don't necessarily have a sole European focus. You see how these worlds come to life, and it might help you add to your world in a way that you or your party or your GM or DM didn't know you would love, but you get the inspiration to do it.
Before we wrap up, where can people find more of your work? Is there any future works coming about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the in-house game designer and creative producer over at Roll20. So you can find plenty of the stuff that I do there. There's something coming out like every few months with Roll20 with what we're doing, especially like in like September, October, November. There's a few things coming out finally that have been coming into fruition that I've been working hard on. You can find my work over at MCDM. I have worked on Kings of Warfare as well as 2 editions of Arcadia. You obviously can find my work inside of the Pathfinder Paizo book, the Mwangi Expanse. You can find some of my work. Honestly, if you find me on Twitter at Gabe James Games, you will find most of the stuff that I talk about, as well as links to everything else that I'm doing. And there's always something going on because I can't stop creating. I love doing this stuff.
Well, excellent. Well, viewers, thank you so much for checking out this interview. If you haven't got your shots yet, please do. Please stay safe out there. Have a good night, everyone.